Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This week it's all about writing assessments for the late summer assessment period. Hi, welcome back to our academic space here on YouTube. I'm Caroline. I'm a UK University Physics lecturer. If you're new, do think about joining the community by hitting subscribe. If you're a returning viewer, it's lovely to have you back. And thank you to everybody who's left comments on the channel. This week, I thought we could chat about writing assessments that are going to be in the late summer assessment period. So first of all then, what is this late summer assessment period? So as the name kind of gives away, it is a period of assessments that happen towards the end of summer. So here in the UK, that's typically in the end of July, maybe start of August. Now, this examination window is for students who need to either resit an examination paper or for students who weren't able to take the exam paper when it was scheduled during the academic year and needed to delay taking the assessment until later in the summer. So let's break that down a little bit. So sometimes you sit an exam paper or an assessment and things just don't go to plan, and the paper isn't going your way, and whatever happens on that day, unfortunately you might occasionally fail a paper. Now, different rules and different regulations will apply depending on how many credits particular students have failed and what happened in the modules. But typically students are able to have a second assessment, so a second go at taking an examination. Now that happens usually in the late summer assessment period. So if a student took something and it didn't go well and they didn't pass it, they'd be given a second go towards the end of the summer. And again, there'll be rules and regulations, but quite often that second attempt is limited with how many marks the student can actually score on that paper because it's their second go at doing something. But also you might have the situation where students wanted to take the exam paper when it was set, either in semester 1 or semester 2, but just something happened. Personal life, things crop up, sometimes we get on well, sometimes there's personal situations, and you just aren't able to take that examination when you thought you were going to be able to. Now at universities we have this thing called extenuating circumstances, and if you meet the requirements of those and your case is approved, you might be allowed to delay your assessment from when it was meant to happen in the academic year into the late summer assessment period. And that means that you're actually taking the exam for the first time, and so therefore your mark isn't capped in any way because it's your first go at sitting the exam paper. So what does that mean then for us as academics? So every year when I write my assessments and my examinations, I have to be mindful that I might have students taking the exams and the assessments within the late summer assessment period, as well as the ones taking them in the main exam session at the end of semester. Now, for some modules, that means you have to write multiple exam papers. So for one of my modules, we have to write an exam paper for students to sit at the end of semester 1, which is their main exam paper. But I have to write a second exam paper ready for the late summer assessment period for students that either are taking the exam for a first time because they delayed it because of extenuating circumstances, or for students who are resitting that paper to try to pass it because they failed the first time round. So that means that I'm not writing one paper for semester 1, I'm actually preparing 2 papers. And I think it's really important as an academic to appreciate that those papers have to be both of the same academic standard and rigour. It's not a case that the second paper for the late summer assessment period, doesn't matter or can just be, quickly written up. Students might be taking that exam paper as their main exam paper in the late summer assessment period. So both the papers that I write for that module have to be of equal standing and equally thought through. Now, sometimes you might set an assessment and then think, actually, I need to change this if it's going to go into the late summer assessment period. One of the examples I have is that I'm the module lead for a module that is group-based working. And that's absolutely fine. The students work in a group and they produce a report that is a collective between them. And that's great if it all goes to plan, but of course you might get the situation where a student is unable to contribute to that report because something's happened. Something's happened during the semester and they're not able to contribute. They need to have an assessment that they can take later in the academic year without impacting the rest of the students who are writing this collective group report. And obviously, if you've got one student who is delaying the assessment, they then cannot be writing a group project report because everybody else will have handed in their report when the deadline was actually due. And so for that particular module, I have the group report writing exercise, which is an assessment for the students. But if somebody is not able to complete or undertake it and needs to go into the later assessment period, we have a different assessment. So actually it's an individual assessment that the student will now take. So not always is it like for like. You can't always write exactly the same kind of format of assessment for the late summer assessment period as you do for the main assessment period. And the other thing to bear in mind is that when we write exams and assessments for the kind of the end of semester, our main examination periods, they get moderated, assessed and checked by an internal university review process and an external review process. So these assessments, these exams are checked to make sure they're of the right standard and that the complexity is correct and they're pitched correctly for the level of the student. Now, all of that happens with the main assessments also happens for any assessments that you put forward for the late summer assessment period. So just because you're writing potentially the RESIT examination paper or the paper for students who are taking it for the first time because of extenuating circumstances, all those assessments, all those kind of papers will also be going through the review process, the internal review process and also an external review process. I think I've chatted the examination review process in a previous video. I'll add a link in the comments box below. But I guess the take home really is that both the assessments that you're writing, the ones for the main period, the ones in the late summer assessment period, they're both going to be subjected to the same rigour and the same review process. So you really do, as an academic, have to write those papers, to be of the same standard, you have to put the same time into it, the same effort into it. And of course, you might be writing your paper for 100 students that are going to take it at the end of your module. And then you might only have, say, 2 or 3 students sitting the paper in the late summer assessment period. So on one hand, you're writing an examination paper for 100 students, and then you're writing another examination paper that will only actually be taken by 2 or 3 students. But regardless, both of those papers have to be of the same quality and will undergo the same checks. And I don't know how your university does it, but in my case, when we submit the assessments for our module, we have to submit both assessments. So the assessments for the main part of the module that we think the students are going to be taking, and we also have to submit the assessments that are going to sit within the late summer assessment period should a student need to take those examinations then. So actually, when you're writing your exams and your assessments, you're actually writing double the content. And I don't think that sometimes we don't probably highlight that enough, that actually you're not writing one paper, but you're preparing 2 papers. So yeah, it's just a little interesting kind of part of being an academic that again I think is a bit hidden, that we don't talk about the fact that when we do these assessments, we're writing multiple papers because of these different situations that might arise. So let me know, how do you tackle writing your exams? Do you have to write them in a particular way? Do you have students who have the opportunity to retake examinations within the summer? Do all your exams happen at the end of your academic year? At my university, we have exams after semester 1 and after semester 2, and then we also have exams in the late summer assessment period. So there are 3 points in our kind of calendar year when there will be assessments within the university. But yeah, let me know, how do you find writing exam RESIT papers? Do keep sending me your video suggestions as well. And as I said, if you're new around here, please do join our little academic space here on YouTube. But yeah, have a really good week. It's quite busy, as you can imagine, at the university at the moment because we're coming towards the end of semester 2. But yeah, look after yourselves, stay safe, and I will see you next week for another academic video. Bye.